Hello and welcome back to the Smell of Logic channel, where we read Reddit stories and do advice and all kinds of weird paranormal stuff. I am Ramona, and today's topic is going to be, this is serious, ready? Hey Reddit, have you ever heard, seen a mythological spirit or ghost animal, or a nature spirit or entity, or other spooky occurrences with animals? What's your experience? That was quite a mouthful, but here we go. During my sleep paralysis episodes, I used to see this cat in my room, just doing normal cat stuff like scratching my furniture and laying around. I would see him pretty frequently, too. One day, he was scratching my nightstand. I tried to yell at him, but I couldn't. I always thought it was weird that I see the same cat every time I have sleep paralysis. My grandmother's house has a ghost cat. I'd always see it out of the corner of my eye. My grandfather had dementia and would sort of wander around the house at night, moving things around. I worried that maybe he'd kept doing that after he died, but he seemed to rest easy. Years later, my grandmother had dementia too, Lewy body, which includes hallucinations. One night, when I was staying with her, she became convinced that there was a nice old man in the house who had come in earlier that day but needed to leave. It was dark and storming outside. She went through all 3 stories and the basement looking for him and yelling for him to get out. She was 90 pounds of pure courage. I've seen what looks like a bat fly past my head while looking in a mirror. I've seen shapes move into rooms and through a doorway multiple times. I have cats, and I've had others before, but always black and white. These ones were just pure black. When I've investigated, there's no cat, just an empty room or hallway. While staying with a girlfriend, like 11 years ago now, due to our young age, we were sleeping apart. They were 11 years ago. Okay, so parents didn't trust us, of course. I slept in the living room on a pull-out bed. It was the middle of summer. I have hay fever, and there's a window open, so I'm in and out of sleep a lot that night, using my inhaler to counter the wheezy chest. One time I wake up and there's a black cat sitting on my chest, so I stroke it. It reciprocates, then moves to a nearby armchair and beds down for the night. I had met one cat earlier, and I knew she had 2 cats, and the second hid from strangers, so I took this as a compliment. It could tell I was a cat person. Next day, I'm introduced to the second cat. It's not black, it's white and ginger mixed. I explain my midnight visitation to the girlfriend, and she's kind of surprised, but it's not like the first time she'd heard someone tell her something similar. Her old cat was black, but it had passed away years ago. Hopefully this helps. My daughter asked me today if I'd seen a ghost. I told her about the time when I was 13 and I saw my grandparents' cat float down the stairs as if some unseen entity was carrying him. She's 7, so when she said she couldn't sleep because it scared her, I told her it was a story I liked to tell, but I swear I did see it. Me and my friend were walking through his neighborhood at around 11 p.m. The same time we feel a presence and look behind us. We looked back at each other and asked if the other one had felt the same thing. As we were walking, we could feel it watching us, and it moved to various areas around the neighborhood. We started freaking out and hid in his car until we thought it had left. Then both of us at the exact same areas, and the wind would move behind when we felt it, and nowhere else. I lived in an old house in the country, and I thought I could see cats all the time. They'd always be running around a corner and right out of sight, but you could never quite look at one for long enough to see if it was really real. I'd search all over the house and never find them. Then eventually, when I got a kitten, they went away. I've had a few strange animal-related experiences, but one that stands out for me was an encounter I had while staying at an inn. The innkeeper made no mention of any pets upon my arrival. Usually innkeepers will warn you if the pet might be wandering into your room. But in the middle of the night, I was awoken by the sensation of a dog licking my hand. I slept with my hand hanging over the edge of the bed. I opened my eyes to see a long-haired black dog standing right beside the bed. I love dogs, so it was quite heartwarming to me, although unexpected, and I reached my hand further out to pet him. My hand passed right through his face as if he was nothing more than an apparition. The figure quickly faded out completely, and this startled me out of bed. I proceeded to walk around the room in utter confusion, unable to figure out what had just happened. I chalked it up to being in some sort of hallucination until the next morning. Then I mentioned the incident over breakfast and was told that numerous guests have had the same encounter with a long-haired black dog in the night. It was so common that the owners had given him a name, Padfoot, and the guest book I signed before leaving bore repeated references to Padfoot from previous guests. The owner had no history of owning a black dog, so there was no ready explanation for his presence. My friend is Irish. Her uncle has a sheep farm out in the country. One day he was clearing new grazing areas and came across a fairy circle. He's not the superstitious type, so he didn't think twice before destroying it. This is a big no-no in Ireland. Every single one of his lambs came out stillborn that year. Every single one. He respects the fairies now. That's creepy. Used to raise sheep. That would be devastating to have a whole herd come out stillborn. That could be chalked up to something else. There could be a disease. There could be something the ewes ate. But still, fairy circles are not to be messed with. I have no personal story. However, I believe that skinwalkers may be something you want to look into. Yes, when I was a kid, my dog got out one night and we never found him again. A couple of years later, I was playing in the kitchen and all of a sudden he was there with me. I got up and he disappeared. I remember having a peace about it. I went to my mom and told her Feifel died. I don't know why, I just knew that he had passed. And the logical adult I am now thinks I must have been seeing things, but really it was so clear, I still can see it. And the feeling, it just felt so real. Shortly after a family pet died, I saw her walking down the hall in our house. I had a feeling of peace wash over me, and I discovered my sibling had a similar experience around the same time. We hadn't told anyone. That was 20+ years ago. In the hours before my dad died, we saw his pet dog from over 40 years earlier, our cat that died 4 years earlier, and even my pet rabbit that died 4 years ago. He sort of marveled at it. Even the rabbit is jumping around. She probably shouldn't be here. All right, something I can contribute to. My buddy and I were driving home around 9 p.m. in South Carolina. Clear night, so nothing obscuring our sight. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a large animal on all fours, skinless, almost canine-like, that pounced on a neighborhood cat and disappeared as quickly as he came. I continued driving and don't say a word because I don't believe what I saw. After a few minutes, my friend says, "Did you see that?" We still talk about it because there was talk in the southeast of a skinless predator that, for lack of a better word, was a cryptid. Also, there are no wolves or coyotes in our neck of the woods before that speculation begins. Edit. So I'm pretty big into camping in the area, but I live in downtown Charleston, which is a bigger metropolitan area. I've seen coyotes on the outskirts of Charleston, but this place isn't known for them. It didn't resemble a coyote in how it moved. Also, I tried to type cryptid, but autocorrect got the best of me. Since this has gotten big, I recommend looking into other known South Carolina cryptid, the lizard man of Scape Ore Swamp. When I was a kid, I would get sleep paralysis often and would almost always see the same thing. It was like this Gollum-looking creature from Lord of the Rings, but with solid black eyes, and it was more muscular. It would always sit beside my head and make weird noises with its teeth, almost like Hannibal Lecter. It would also start to shake with excitement or just sit there and cry. I used to think my mind would make it up, but my mom claims to have seen it, almost the exact same creature. One time I was hiking in southern Utah along the Sandstone Ridge when I saw a pair of coyotes trotting along an adjacent ridge, maybe 100 yards away. This could have been a trick of the light, confusing perspective, or me being tired, but I swear one of those guys suddenly stood up on its hind legs, looked around, and sauntered down the opposite side of the ridge and out of sight like a guy going for an evening walk. I just stood there for a few minutes thinking. That was the weirdest effing thing I'd ever seen. When I was a teenager, I went to a 2-day music festival, and while I was gone, my mother decided that it was a great time to have a dog that I'd had my whole life put down. She was really old, and I knew it was coming, but I wanted to be with her. So, needless to say, I was heartbroken. I couldn't stop crying, and as I'm laying on my bed, I feel this huge whomp, just like she'd decided it was bedtime. I could feel her curled up against my back, all warm, and I heard that huff she'd make when she got comfy. I put my hand behind me, and I could feel her fur. I calmed down and fell asleep. When I woke up, my dog was gone, but there was a big warm dent in the covers, just like she'd left. I was driving down a highway late one night, and I saw a tannish fog, approximately the size of a deer, run across the road in sort of a bouncing motion. I would have thought that I was seeing things, but there was this one car in front of me, and they hit their brakes so they wouldn't run into it. It was very strange, but I just thought, a deer ghost, and continued on my way home. There was a ghost cat at my old house. I turned to greet my cat, because it was so apparent that there was a cat there, but then, of course, there was no cat. She was like a white ball of light. When I was living in NSW, I was out exploring the area when I saw a kangaroo with unusual markings. It had a white face. A while later, I mentioned that I'd seen this at a local pub, and everyone got quiet, then quickly changed the subject. I found out later that what I described was considered a bad omen in the local dream time, and I totally believe it. It gets a little odder. It wasn't a total white face. It was like a white skull marking. It still had the color on the ears, around the eyes, mouth, etc. At the time, we were years into bad drought, and it wasn't uncommon to find native animals dead in deep mud, presumably after attempting to access water. For some reason, when I saw this roo, I had a mental picture of its face planting into some mud. Then it had dried, leaving the unusual markings. In a split second, it made sense. But then I sat and thought about it, that I knew it wasn't mud, but actual markings. I'm really not a superstitious kind of guy, but I lived in a house as a child that my mother, father, and I were all convinced was haunted, or at the very least some crazy supernatural shit was going down. On multiple occasions each day, both of the cats in the household would stop whatever they were doing and watch some invisible object move from one end of the room to the other, then return to doing cat stuff. We also caught our cat occasionally in a tense stance. Think ears back, fur spiked up, and eyes wide, ready to fight to the death. Staring down, nothing while being seemingly fixed in place and immovable. We would always need to pet them or do something to snap them out of it, and even then it still took a few moments for them to come around. One of the cats also liked to go into the basement, assume the same tense stance while staring at one of the closets, and howl, as in you could swear the cat was dying, the most guttural and bizarre noise I've ever heard from a cat. These cats never exhibited any of these behaviors before we entered the home, nor after we left. That's just the cat stuff. All sort of weird shit happened, too. I've posted this before, but this isn't my own personal experience, but a story from my sister and Mom. We lived out in the countryside at the base of North Georgia mountains when I was growing up. I mean, getting to town or the closest grocery store required a 30-minute drive at least, and there was one section of the road on the way towards the highway that crossed over an old wooden bridge, following immediately after by a set of train tracks. Well, my mom was driving my sister to her dance classes one evening in the fall after dark, and they slowed down to cross the train tracks when they see this animal emerge from the woods and cross through their headlights while staring through the windshield at them the entire time it was crossing in front of them. The way my sister described it was like a large, thin black dog with a much rounder and flatter face, but was an insanely open, wide mouth, opened to a smile with what looked like human teeth. As soon as it was out from in front of them, they booked it into town and told my dad and I after they got home. As far as I know, it's not been spotted again, but I honestly can't imagine what it could have been. Okay, this is a bit silly, but it is inexplicable and the only real supernatural thing that has ever happened to me. When I was about 12, I went to bed and was waiting to fall asleep when I heard a cat sharpening its claws on my carpet. Scratch, 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 pretty loud. I sat up and looked around the room at the light coming from under the door. Then it happened again, and I could tell the sound was coming from the left of the door where it was dark. I sighed and got out of bed, turned on the light, and no cat. I searched my room, and then I got my parents because I didn't want one of our cats stuck in the room all night. But they found both of our cats shut downstairs for the night. I've heard our cats sharpen their claws on the carpet before, and that's what it was like. It's a really distinct sound, and it was in my room between my bed and my door, so a ghost cat? It never happened again. Not sure if it counts, but when I was like 12 or 11 or 12ish, I fell asleep sitting up, my hands at my sides and palms facing upwards. I woke up and could hear my mom and brother talking loudly downstairs. I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but I recognized their voices, and then began to hear a cat meowing very distinctly. I shouted, "Mom, whose cat is that?" and got no response when all of a sudden this white cat pushes through my door and enters. I like to refer to this cat as the cosmic cat, just because the second it entered I would feel like its power. I remember wanting to pet it, but quickly realizing that I couldn't move anything from the elbows down. This me out, though, so much I just smiled at the cat. It got closer, then bit me, almost like a snake bite, on my upturned left wrist. I'm left-handed. I woke up gasping and clutching my wrist. I could feel the sting of its needle like fangs for hours after. I think this is probably like the only time I ever experienced anything closely related to sleep paralysis, but after that incident I had a series of dreams throughout the year where I'd feel physical pain in dreams. I tend to have weird-ass dreams anyway, so I wouldn't have just passed it off as being a classically weird moment, but a year later I would still wake up on occasion feeling things from dreams, so I told my mom about the cat dream. She looked at me all crazy and then said that she'd had the exact same dream once, but she heard a snake hissing, and when it got close, it struck her on her right hand, and she woke up feeling it. Apparently, we both have dreams on occasion now where we feel things. I don't know if this counts as a spooky experience, but there it is. I don't have a story, but I wanted to say that these stories are really cool, and I'm curious to know what kind of research or whatever you are doing with these responses and what they are for. There are plenty of explanations as to why this isn't paranormal, but I like to think it was. We used to have 3 dogs, the mum and her 2 grown-up pups. They all got on well, but would get a bit grouchy when one of the others came near their food, so at mealtimes we put down 3 bowls on 3 different sides of the house. One day, out of the blue, the mum died. She was a decent age, but it was still a surprise. The next day we put the food out as usual, and one of the remaining dogs, her daughter, kept looking behind her at the empty space, growling like there was a dog behind her. The other dog and the cats were nowhere near her. Never before or since has she done that. So while it was probably nothing, I do like to think that ghost Nina came back to see her pups one last time. The morning my girlfriend and I were laying in bed on a cold morning. We didn't have work or school that day because it had snowed. She lived out in the middle of nowhere, like no neighbors for a mile nowhere. Well, I hear someone right outside the window say, "Get down, you're going to be able to see you. Get down, they're going to be able to see you if you don't get down." So, of course, this startled me, and I turn around and see a guy and 3 dogs right outside walking towards the garage door. So I grab my handgun and go to meet them at the door and found out why they were there. So in those 10 seconds, I get outside and no one is there. Right outside our window, there was the shoe prints and paw print in the fresh snow. I tracked them down the back of the property after about 100 yards, but they were only paw prints. I looked over my left 10 to 15 yards. They're very similar paw prints that looked like they had come from the forest towards the house. So I tracked those up to the house, and then shoe prints appeared about 25 yards from the house. So I followed them to see if maybe they had gone out the front of the property, but there were none. To this day, I'm really not sure what happened or what was outside our window. I had this friend tell me that his neighbor did construction jobs or remodeling for other houses in the neighborhood. The neighbor only worked by himself and finished the jobs at an impossible speed for any one person to do. Then my friend asked how he did it. The neighbor said he has dwarves from the mountains come and finish the job at night. Dwarves that mine gems and shit. Friend's a skeptic, but I'm convinced, so I don't know. I saw a shadow person. When I was about 17, I was at my friend's apartment building, which his parents owned. It had a pretty old building in Pilsen, and according to his dad, it used to be owned by S.O. Capone. What's his name? Anyway, Capone. But I'm not sure how true that was. We had an apartment at the top floor they let us use to just hang out and allowed us easy access to the roof so we could go smoke cigarettes. One night we were about to go up, and I had to pee, so I told him I'd meet him up there. After I was done, I went up the stairs to the attic portion that was connected to the roof. There were no lights, so we always used our phone to guide us. We had those old flip phones without lights, so you had the only light from the screen to help navigate the cluttered mess that was up there. I made my way up to the roof. I had a shadow pass by me. Now, this isn't like the shadow of something moving with the light of my phone. This shadow felt solid like a person. I followed the direction it went, thinking it was my friend. I kept saying that I knew it was him and to stop playing around. It passed me a few more times before heading to the other side of the attic, and that's when I heard my friend's voice from downstairs. He got a call from his girlfriend and was in another room talking to her the whole time. I have no idea what the shadow figure was, but it really freaked me out, and I told my friend what happened and that I did not want to go back up there. I think I've read that story on another post, but anyway. Thank you for listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Probably going to do another one because there's a whole bunch more replies on there. So, go check out another video, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.